So thank you for the introduction. I have to say I'm a little nervous now because of the kind words of the ambassador and like praising Slovak experts. I was unaware of the long-running cooperation between like Slovak foreign policy experts and North Macedonia. So thanks for being here. I will try to talk about our experience with building value for money unit at the finance ministry, mostly working on spending reviews. I specifically work on healthcare budgeting and spending reviews related to health and social affairs. But I will try to cover like all of our experience and then talk about kind of a case study from health. So why do we analyze public spending and why do we do spending reviews? So there are at least like four different not ways of looking at this, but maybe benefits of spending reviews. So the most obvious one is cutting wasteful spending. We can also try to get more value for the same spending. So maybe like change one program to another. Important part of this work is also about new expenditures. So maybe we can accept that there will be more spending, but we try to make sure that the money goes to the most promising areas. And that there is a whole part of our work which is about transparency and making the public budget and public spending not only more transparent but more understandable for the general public and for journalists. So some examples of the topics we have covered from each of these areas, and please feel free to interrupt me or jump in with any questions. It's easier for me than to react to questions than just to talk 20 minutes straight. Without any input from you. So the wasteful spending, and perhaps you have had some similar experiences in your country. So in Slovakia, there is a long-running system of financing primary and middle schools, where the schools get money per student pretty much, and like the more students they have, and there's some other aspects, like if you have a student with disability, you get more money for them, and so on. And one of the parameters in this equation for school funding is the size of school, because it's much more efficient to run a school with 500 students than if you have only 50 students. Like you can't get the same amount per student and still be able to run the really small school. And there is lots of really small schools in remote areas and villages and so on. And it has a lot of value that the students are able to attend the school in their village, and then they don't have to take a bus, or their parents don't have to drive them every day to a nearby village. So these schools get some extra support, and I think it makes sense. But this was a general rule that like you are a small school, so you get extra funding. And this also works for private schools. So private schools get the same funding with the same rules as public schools. And what started happening, and they can charge some extra fees to the families. And what started happening is that like people started opening private schools in the capital that were charging fees, and they were keeping them intentionally really small. It was part of the benefit of the school and part of why the parents were paying for those schools, because the school was really small, and the state was still funding these schools as if they were in remote areas. But it was completely misplaced, because it has nothing with the original intent of this policy. So now it's going to change, and the Ministry of Education is working on legislative changes. I wanted to highlight this as an example of wasteful spending, so that like the original idea perhaps made sense, but it was taken to an extreme in a sense, and it was completely misplaced and misused by different organizations that were intended for. The second point would be, and that there was lots of public debate about this in Slovakia, so around 50% of spending in healthcare goes to salaries of health workers, and there are different interest groups. And in Slovakia, if we compare ourselves to Western European countries, per capita we have pretty much the same number of physicians, or it's very small, maybe we have like 5% less, but we have a big need for nurses, and in nurses, like the Netherlands has like I think almost twice as many nurses per capita than we do. And also their salaries relative to physicians, I would say, are probably more of an issue because it's easier for them to get a job in Austria, in Czech Republic, and in Germany, and they were leaving because these countries also feel like they would benefit from having more nurses, so they were hiring nurses from Slovakia. So we believe it should be a priority to finance or increase their salaries first, and maybe then focus on physicians. But because the physicians had, I would say, better organized unions and lobby, they were getting the priority. So here, we would say it's okay to give more money to health workers, but probably we should worry about nurses first, physicians second. The third point would be, for example, mental health. So we did a large analysis of the impacts of public health on public finance. And it's one of the areas in Slovakia which is compared again to Western European countries very underfinanced, and getting better results in mental health would have lots of economic benefits, and we can't really get these benefits without extra funding. So as a finance ministry in general, we are trying to avoid new spending, but And I think it's like part of the job, and it's up to the line ministries to come up with ideas how to spend money, and maybe we will say, well, not so fast, and let's look at this. But mental health is one of the areas where we say, like, okay, if you want to spend new money, like perhaps this should be one of the areas where you spend the money. Another example of this would be prioritization of transport investments, and from what I have heard, it seems to me that it's probably a similar issue here in Slovakia. So there is like a very long list of large infrastructure projects that need to be finished, or some maybe even started in Slovakia. And because these projects take a lot longer than is a term of one government, part of the reason why they take so long is that there were also always like changes in priorities, and every time there was a new minister, they might maybe think like, okay, well, this is the project I will start, and just because it was changing all the time, like nothing was really getting done, and they always try to make the discussion seem like it's just a question of money, and so from the finance ministry perspective, the response is something like okay, we understand that we need to spend money for infrastructure, but let's make sure we understand what the priorities are. So maybe publish a list of your priorities. We can discuss whether these priorities make sense, and then we will start from the most important projects going to the least important ones, because it's not how the money is usually spent, and there is some correlation between a priority and spending, but it's like it's not a very direct relationship. And then the last big area will be making public spending more transparent, and I would maybe highlight health spending here, because there was a long-running belief with general public in Slovakia, I think, that healthcare in Slovakia is excellent, it's just the lack of money. And if only the physicians are excellent, all is good, we just need more money and all will be great. And unfortunately, it's not so simple. And we started just publishing numbers and benchmarking Slovakia to other countries. And it turns out that there are countries which spend similar percentage of GDP or similar nominal sums on health, and they do get better results. So this helps to create public pressure and political will to not just pour money into healthcare, but also to worry and discuss the health results and discuss which policies will improve the health results the most. So what we do within our unit, so as I mentioned, we write spending reviews. So this would be 50 to 150 page long documents analyzing large expenditure areas, in general proposing those 4 kinds of points which are mentioned, what is wasteful spending, what are the areas for improvement, what are the results given the money we are spending here, what are the most promising areas for new investment. We also do investment appraisals, so this would be like mostly large infrastructure projects, but also different kinds of investments, large IT projects, let's say. So if like a government entity is going to invest and spend public money, before they do, they have to do a cost-benefit analysis and like all these sorts of preparations, and they have to submit this to the finance ministry, and we comment on it. And this is happening publicly. So this helps make sure that projects which should bring the most value for money or would have the best cost-benefit analysis should be supported, and the ministries are under pressure not to submit less beneficial projects. Absolutely crucial part of the work is integration of the first 2 points with the budgeting process. So it wouldn't make sense if we were not able to link this with the budget. And also part of it is, I would say, internal consulting for the leadership of the ministry. So this might be, let's say, if I work on healthcare and there is some negotiations between the, physicians union come to the government and they say, we need more money. The government needs some analytical support in dealing with them, so we would be doing that in the areas on which we focus long term. Here is a description from the OECD on what is a spending review. So I hope it is similar to what we do. I would highlight the bottom 2 points because I will try to talk about this. So it's that link with the budgeting process, and strong political leadership and commitment are absolutely crucial. So this is a professional, not political work, but it is very linked to the political situation and politics, and there must be commitment from specifically the finance minister, but in general the government to support this work, and they must see it as beneficial for the public finance. And in explaining what we do, it helps to also say what we don't do, just to give you an idea, because there are different bodies doing all sorts of similar work which is related to each other. So at the finance ministry we have a financial policy institute who are our close colleagues, but they are more focused on macro and tax forecasts, on fiscal policy, long-term trends such as aging and so on. So they do this, we don't do this. We are more focused on spending in, let's say, next today to next few years, and they are more about forecasting and macro issues. And then we have colleagues from the budget policy section whom we also work closely with, and they do the day-to-day budget execution, which is again very related to our work, but it is different work. And I suppose every finance ministry in the world has a budget policy section. Not every ministry does spending reviews, and this is something to be developed and then linked with the budget section. And then there is plenty of bodies outside of the finance ministry which, in a sense, do something similar, but it's not the same. So the crucial difference, I would say, because sometimes there is public expectation from us that we are here to criticize the government, and sometimes we do write critical investment appraisals, or a spending review would be critical of a certain policy. And it's the easiest way to get praise from the public and from the journalists is just to write something critical of the government, and everybody's great work. And it can't be all of the work or the only part of that work, because to be effective and to achieve the kinds of results we want to achieve, we need to be integrated with the ministry, and the ministry must see us as a beneficial part of the finance ministry, and it can't be just criticizing everything. So there are outside bodies to do that, and it's in Slovakia it would be, for example, Council for Budget Responsibility, which is an independent body. So we started in 2016. It was an initiative of a couple of colleagues from the Institute for Financial Policy, which I mentioned. So we started with 3 people. It quickly grew to about 10, 15. Now there is 40 of us, and I don't think we will grow further. We were a little bit bigger a couple of years ago. Now we are at 40, and it seems to be just fine. And in general, the main motivation was probably, you hear this often in your country as well, that there is some kind of a project which maybe doesn't make much sense or is not the most beneficial publicly. And people would say well, it's everything is in line with the law, so there is nothing to say about it, and it's just not enough. And the idea was that within the finance ministry there should be a body which says okay, it's not about just complying with the law, but we have to look for the best option, and this is what we are trying to do. So this is the overview of spending reviews we have done. I hope that the fonts are not too small. So in 2016 we started with these three. So it was transport, healthcare, and IT spending. And now these light blue are the ones which we work on right now. So maybe to highlight, I would say our capacity with 40 people, not everybody is doing spending reviews, is to work on 3 to 5 spending reviews at the same time, or maybe within 1 year. So the spending reviews take 1 to 2 years. And usually it would be a team of 3 people and with help of some others, but I would say 2 to 3 full-time people focused on spending review and a couple of others who help occasionally. And I also wanted to mention that our progress has been from very broad and large spending areas like healthcare or transport, and then we did healthcare again and again, to more focused spending reviews. So now we didn't do another healthcare spending review, but we focused just on state-owned hospitals. And now we are doing one just on pharmaceuticals. So we wouldn't be able to do these two without previously working on healthcare in general. So we had to first understand the big picture. Now we are going into detail. And it's also because we have kind of collected the low-hanging fruit over the past couple of years, and now if we want to continue to have results, we need to go more in detail and focus on specific areas more, and it's similar in different areas. So I worked on this one, for example. So we did an analysis of the Ministry of Interior, which includes the police force in Slovakia, and then we did one just on police. And then our colleagues did analysis of just the prison system and spending there. And now they are working on one which will be focused within police, just on the police force. And we believe we are able to get better results if we focus on these areas. But it is also when you can't start with this. It is a result of long running work on these areas. So because the colleagues have spent a couple of years dealing with the police force, they can now do a spending review focused just on the police force. And this is the investment appraisals. So it's just the number of them that I don't work on this. So the number that our colleagues have done over the years, and you see a huge jump here in 2020. What happened is that, as I mentioned, it's easy to get praise when we are critical of the government. And so usually we are more popular with the opposition parties than with the coalition parties. And the former, previously opposition parties got into power here. And one of the announcements was that it will be wonderful now, there will be no corruption because the value for money unit will analyze every investment above 1 million euros, which was ridiculous because here we used to do investments above 40 million euros in all areas except for IT, and within IT the threshold was 10 million euros. And here it was an awful amount of new projects because anything is a ministry is buying 20 cars and it will be above 1 million euros, but it didn't really make sense for us to focus on this. So these small investment appraisals quickly became a kind of a bureaucratic exercise, and all of the valuable work was still dealing in detail with the small number of large investments. So when it was possible, we were able to reverse the law, and we went back to the original thresholds of 10 and 40 million euros. And there were some other legislative changes. So in the what we started with was just ad hoc economic assessments. So it was basically healthcare ministry wants to do a large investment, then maybe the finance minister believes that, well, we could get, better deal here. So he would give it to some people and look at this and maybe write an appraisal of this investment. So it was not formal, it was an ad hoc basis. Then it was formalized firstly by a kind of a government decree and later put in law that every public body doing an investment about 40 million euros outside of IT must submit that to the finance ministry. So this was the change to 1 million euros. So then we reverted that. And now what we are working on formally is linking the investment plans and the investment appraisals with the budgeting process, because what would usually happen, and I guess this is similar in many other countries, we lack public investments in many areas, but at the same time there is budget underspends pretty much every year in many areas. And it happens because, for example, the transport ministry believes we will do all these great projects, so give us money, and because those projects are important and they have public support, they get the money in the budget, but they don't have capacity to actually, the projects are not well prepared and don't have capacity to spend that money. And so the money didn't go into other areas and it remains at the transport ministry, it is not spent. So our colleagues are helping the budget section to assess whether what is the capacity to spend actually, and whether the proposed investments are in line with the stated priorities, and this helps to improve the budgeting process, but also the prioritization of investments and produce savings. Okay. So I would just quickly maybe talk about what in our experience, what was most important in our development, and I would highlight political ownership and capacity development. And in terms of political ownership, so as I mentioned, for this to work, it must be supported by the Minister of Finance, and the rest of the government must be at least okay with it. And in practical terms, we wouldn't work on a spending review if there is no buy-in from the line ministry. So we have, for example, long-running relationship with the healthcare ministry, so we work on spending reviews there. If we wanted to do a spending review at the defense ministry, they would probably not be enthusiastic about it, and we wouldn't do it in that case, because we have experienced that if the ministry doesn't see this as a beneficial exercise, it won't be beneficial, because whatever we write, then can say these guys, they don't understand our area in detail, they're ignorant and so on. And we would just bicker with them instead of working on common issues. So we work on areas where there is buy-in from the other ministry. And development of internal capacities is the other issue. So now there is 40 of us, and it was a long-term development of internal finance ministry people. We do have some experience with consulting companies, but I would say this is not a substitute for internal capacities, and all the public policy work, I believe, must be done by internal people. And if we get help from outside, and we did get a lot of help over the years, it was mostly from the IMF and OECD, much rather than consulting companies or something similar. And I do mention specialized courses because luckily we were able to support education of our colleagues and
send them for specialized courses, like on ranging from like few days to a few weeks, pretty much every summer, and this has helped develop people. And maybe I would finish here, and if you want to talk about specifically health financing, I'm happy to chat afterwards, because I don't want to spend all the time. So we have done a lot of work within healthcare, and large part of it is making healthcare financing more transparent. We have had some successes there, so I would be happy to chat about that.
Thank you, Adam. From what you were saying, it seems to me like you were doing what Elon Musk was doing with those.
No, please not.
And if there is time later, I will ask you how much money you saved, because today in American Congress they are voting for $9 billion decommitment of the money that they classified as waste, fraud, or misuse, maybe including $4 million for our anti-corruption projects here. But it would be interesting to see what is the effect of your work in terms of money, but we'll come to that later.